Valley Vision is a regional nonprofit civic leadership organization based in Oak Park here in Sacramento. We've been around for over 30 years, focusing on improving the livability of our capital region through research, collaboration, and action. We're a triple bottom line organization, so we're co equally advancing social equity, economic prosperity, and environmental sustainability, which matches up perfectly with the goals of California Jobs First, which is the state initiative that has been going on for over 2 years at this point. We Prosper Together is the capital, our name for the Capital Region California Jobs First initiative. So this is bridging together 8 counties surrounding California's capital to build a stronger regional economy. And we'll talk a little bit about the priority sectors and how this webinar came to be, how our business services work has come to be. Next slide, please. So these are the key goals of We Prosper Together and California Jobs First. Foster a collaborative, co-design a regional roadmap. So we've done these two things over the last 2 years through our leadership council process, and then transitioning to our sector advancement committees, which we're talking about today with the Business Services Committee. And at this point, we're looking to attract investment into our region and create accessible living wage jobs. For the Business Services Committee, it's a little bit different than our other sectors, since during the process of the Leadership Council and the design of We Prosper Together, AI came onto the scene in a big way and started to create a lot of confusion for job seekers, for employers, for training partners. And so we decided to focus this committee on looking at the impacts of AI on the regional businesses and regional job seekers. Next slide, please. So as you can see on the right here, these are our priority sectors: biotechnology, precision manufacturing, working lands, and business services. These are 4 high potential tradable sectors focused on what the future of these silos are going to look like and where they intersect, where we can strengthen them for the region. And these were really based on regional data, looking at employment data, looking at the future of growth in the greater Sacramento region. Next slide, please. So we identified 3 really economic development and workforce goals. These goals are increase collaboration across education and workforce systems, build connectivity between existing business incubation, capital access, and workforce assets, identify gaps and barriers to allow for equitable access to training. And hopefully our conversation today will help inform our process, and hopefully you all will learn something as well. Next slide, please.
Thanks, Sam.
And I'll hand things over to Joel. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Let me take just a few minutes here to ground everyone how we got here. My name is Joel Mayer. I'm a principal consultant with the Bridge Consultant Group, serving Valley Vision as the sector investment coordinator for the business services sector that Sam mentioned. I support this effort by coordinating the business services focus and translating research and employer context into workforce relevant insights. When this role was set up, the intent was straightforward: to create a neutral place to look across business services, not to advocate for a specific solution, not to chase trends, but to listen, sort through the noise, and translate. And that matters because there's a lot of noise out there right now, especially around this topic. The intent here is not hype or scare tactics. It's to sort through what's real, what's changing, and what matters, especially for individuals who could be impacted, or for someone just starting out who needs to course correct earlier rather than late. One of the first steps was building an advisory group that reflected the sector. Not one type of organization, not one point of view, but a mix of subsectors, organization sizes, and operating environments. That diversity mattered because change in business services doesn't show up evenly. Early on, it also became clear that employer feedback would be uneven. Some organizations were willing to engage, but many were not, and that's not unusual here. And it shaped how this work evolved. Rather than forced narratives, we grounded the work in research and data, labor market analysis, credible national and regional research. That allowed us to stay objective and avoid overgeneralization from a handful of voices. From there, the focus sharpened around AI and automation, not as a technology conversation, but as a work conversation. Where's AI exposure showing up inside business services roles across such areas as consultant, healthcare administration, public agencies, and not for profit operations? What tasks are changing first? Where's judgment still required? And where are expectations shifting faster than job descriptions? That led directly to translation work, taking what we were seeing and turning it into something usable for workforce systems, not predictions, but practical takeaways, like how to talk to job seekers about change without overstating risk or minimizing reality. And that brings us to today. This webinar is intentionally structured differently. It's not employer facing, it's employer informed. And the goal is not to convince employers of anything. The goal is to support the workforce partners who sit between workers and the labor market every day. What makes today's conversation unique is that it's grounded in real employer environments, filtered through research, direct feedback, where direct feedback was limited or translated specifically to support workforce partners. And that's how this work since July connects to the conversation we're having today. Before we move on to the panel, I want to briefly connect this groundwork to who's joining us today. The panel was intentionally assembled to reflect different parts of the business services sector, different organization sizes, different operating realities. Each of these leaders is navigating AI and automation inside their organizations in real time. The goal is not to present a single perspective, but to bring together varied environments so we can better understand where experiences align and where they diverge. With that context, let me introduce our panel. Slide. It's my pleasure to introduce Shannon Yorkovich with Marshall Medical Center, John Sansucci with Accenture, Haley Figeroid with Clutch, and John Sanborn with the state of California. We thank you all for joining us and being part of the panel. To start off, our first question is, tell us about your organization and how many employees and type of work you do, and then where or how you're seeing AI or automation show up within your organization. And we're going to start off with Shannon.
Sure, thank you, Joel. I am the Director of People Experience at Marshall Medical Center. We are a small, independent, nonprofit acute care facility in Placerville, in between Sacramento and Lake Tahoe. We have about 1,600 employees, one acute care facility, and several outpatient clinics. And so in my role, I oversee your typical HR functions like employee engagement and wage and hour, et cetera, and also oversee the organizational learning and development teams. And what was the second part, Joel? Was it moving on?
Sure. Yeah, so where are you seeing AI or automation show up within your organization?
So for us, being a smaller independent facility, we've recently in the last 2 years have created an AI oversight committee. And so there's a level of discernment there to adopt and review solutions that are worth Marshall's time and that solve at least one problem, if not more. So for example, right now, we use Abridge, which is an ambient listening solution with our providers. And so with patient consent, they have AI listening to the visit. And what that does, it frees up the provider to still have that human interaction without typing on a screen in front of them. And then afterwards, they verify the notes and approve them. And it also saves the providers what the industry calls pajama time, that they're usually spent off hours doing that sort of double checking. The other big part we're seeing it, I think, as most people on this call are through administrative and data tasks. So what may have taken one data analyst a couple of weeks to do can now be done much quicker with AI, such as either examining financial analytics, or we've also used it in speaking to some members of our AI committee with OR block scheduling, so that AI can actually analyze how we're using our ORs and finding those underutilized times to bring more efficiency for us as a healthcare provider in a rural community. So those are probably the biggest areas that we're seeing it right now.
Excellent. Thank you, Shannon.
You're welcome.
Josh.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Josh Sansusi. I'm with Accenture, managing director, living here locally in Sacramento. For those of you not familiar with Accenture, we're a global professional services company. We've got about 750,000 people or so worldwide, 500 of them here locally in Sacramento, working on mostly state of California projects. We've got a big local presence here supporting our public service clients. What Accenture does is basically we help organizations improve how they run by combining strategy, technology, people, operations, all of those components. We work across industries. My background has been public service since I started at Accenture 22 plus years ago. And I love it. It's really fun to do that. But I do spend a lot of time recently with our private sector clients implementing large financial systems. That's kind of been my background. And so, yeah, so that's a little bit about me and Accenture, how we're seeing AI like every day, right? We're seeing it in two big ways. One, how we work, but also what we're building for our clients. So within Accenture, teams are actively using and encouraged to use AI to speed up research, summarize notes, take meeting notes and action items, first drafts to some extent on proposal responses, software development, code. Like we're seeing it in a lot of different places. Even in our back office, by the way, like we're piloting a frictionless hiring process where candidates will interact with humans only at the interview stage, meaning like we're building agentic AI into our HR processes that goes through and does all of those initial scanning requirements on not only resumes, but cover letters and social presence and all those things to identify and find the right pool of applicants to help us with both entry and experience level hiring. So that's been super cool and something that I think is where HR type activities may be heading. Also back office type thing, all of our annual performance reviews. So once a year, we're asked to talk about how awesome our people are. And so a lot of times it's hard to come up with ideas to generate based on these folks. And we have tools now that enable us to provide very small prompts and build really, robust performance reviews. And yeah, and so we're seeing it in a lot of places. We're seeing it building out products for our clients. We're also locally partnering in the Sacramento region with the Sacramento K-16 Collaborative. They are looking to focus on AI skills assessments for allied healthcare, and so we've been partnering with them for the past little bit on that as well. So yeah, lots of stuff happening in the AI space in our company and with me personally. So
Thanks, Josh. Haley, what's going on to Clutch?
Hi. Thanks for the question, and thank you for the answers so far from the rest of the panelists here. My name's Haley Figaroid. You can blame my husband for the last name. It's a funny one. I am with Clutch. It's a women-owned consulting firm based out of Rancho Cordova, near Sacramento, just outside Sacramento. We were founded in 2019. We are a professional services organization. Our foundation, really, all of our services are built on a chassis of organizational change management and human-centered design. We offer project management, standard professional services. We also have a learning and development team, as well as events management. Our most popular service right now is our AI readiness service. So really looking at, because we've hit a point of basically market saturation with the tools that are available, especially as we head into sort of an agent-driven market, regardless of what tool you go with, there are human elements that, for you to really capitalize on whatever tool you procure, need to be set up first. So that's where Clutch comes in. We focus again on building on a foundation of OCM and human-centered design, making sure like your people, your processes, your data, your leadership, and your use case are really well defined so that you can reap the greatest return on investment, regardless of what tool you're going with. So starting with the people first, basically. And to that end, in January, we just announced a partnership with Google Public Sector to help California state and local governments as they deploy Gemini for Government, any of those tools. So Clutch will be supporting all of those teams, again, with the human side of tech deployment is sort of how we like to phrase it, that AI readiness. AI in Clutch, we have all the tools. We do all the tools, and it's a lot of the same use cases that you just heard from Josh. So data summarization, especially looking at really large sets of data, both structured and unstructured, narrative, numerical. So it definitely helps us with that first drafting there. We found it really useful for graphics creation as well. We are a small group of several dozen employees. Our graphic designer is in very high demand. And so on lower lift kind of things, AI has been helpful for like good enough MVP graphics that we need for internal processes. We are also using it to review kind of the market that's out there, proposals that we might want to go for, and do a lot of the research basically into the market there. Prior to joining Clutch, I served with the state of California for over 10 years. I was one of the primary contributors to the state's policy development and implementation of AI on those 8 first pilot use cases, and I product managed those use cases. So those big 8, like big bang standalone AI pilots, we aren't seeing as much anymore, only because the market has shifted, the capability and the tools themselves have shifted to things that are more off the shelf, that can be more configured or tuned to have the same major results that a year and a half, 2 years ago, you had to go to the market to find a custom build for. So we're in a really interesting moment in the market where the tools and the capability and the saturation of those has in some ways replaced these monolithic one-time big spend. So it's an interesting space. And again, for us at Clutch, it all comes back to the humans, your data, your processes, and how are you bringing all of those together to bear to get the best ROI.
Thanks, Haley. It's pretty impressive. John, what's happening at the state?
Hey, Joel. Thank you so much for having me today. So good morning. John Sanborn, Chief Learning Officer for the state of California at CalHR. I lead statewide learning strategy and workforce development for more than 250,000 state employees. We focus primarily on leadership development, data-driven learning, and relevant to this particular call is the responsible use of emerging technologies like generative AI. Our team with learning development delivers approximately 650,000 training hours annually and partners with vendors, academia, to deliver 150 different courses, all in an effort to build what we would say is a modern, future-ready public workforce. A little bit more about CalHR, and that's where I sit. As a statewide chief learning officer, my focus is very external. We do have an internal team that focuses within the department. CalHR is approximately 450 employees, and CalHR is largely responsible for policy and guidance governing the people side of government. So from workforce planning to leadership development to recruitment selection, the whole talent management paradigm. So an example of the work that we particularly do was a recent statewide learning development assessment that included partnership with over 144 departments and nearly 28,000 employee survey responses. One of the important findings was this: while departments are committed to learning, overall L&D maturity is still low across the board. 55% of our departments reported having no formal needs assessment process, and 54% reported no evaluation method for training. So this tells us the opportunity isn't just more training, it's better alignment, I think stronger evaluation, a clearer link to business outcomes. And that's where my team is focused. For the question, Joel, on where is AI showing up, I'm going to keep that lens on learning and development in that particular community. I'm also the executive sponsor for the California Network for Learning Professionals, which has over 2,000 civil service employees that support L&D function across the state of California. But at CalHR specifically, within that group, we're overall cautious and intentional about AI adoption. But again, across the L&D community, AI is clearly accelerating innovation. And I heard Haley talk about a few things that definitely helps with the learning development community. So many departments are using AI tools in course design, avatar creation, image generation, synthetic voice narration, rapid content prototyping, all of that, right? This reduces production time and does save on overall cost and creates products that are easier to sustain. More advanced pilots are utilizing AI to personalize learning scenarios so employees can contextualize training to their actual workflows. So we think about, somebody might be in the healthcare industry or procurement scenarios, supervisory conversations, et cetera. I think, and Haley was a big part of some of the work we did with the executive order on Gen AI. But I think one of the things that we designed was, and I want to emphasize this, is that AI is additive, not foundational. So our employee survey, the assessment that I mentioned, showed that 71% employees believe that on-the-job training is most effective. That tells us fundamentals, coaching, application, human feedback, that still matters the most. And so externally, I think there was some research done with McKinsey back in 2023 that reports estimating that a generative AI could automate up to 30% of work hours and knowledge roles, but primarily by augmenting, not replacing workers. And that's the stance the state of California has taken. Another research study is from the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, which has similar emphasized human-in-the-loop governance models for public sector AI. So for us, CalHR, the mission that we have, my program area, responsible Gen AI means improving access, improving application, strengthening critical thinking, not outsourcing our ability to make decisions. So fundamentally, from a learning development, a learning organization mindset, that's what we're focused, and that's where we're seeing AI show up for us.
Okay, that sounds smart. Thank you, John. Back to you, Shannon. With the next question, which roles are changing the most right now due to AI and automation? And kind of on top of that is, are these entry, mid, or senior level roles, or kind of all of them?
Right. To echo somewhat of what John says, for Marshall being an independent facility, there's a high level of discernment on what we do bring into the organization as improved solutions, in addition to the regulation that comes along with being healthcare. So there's a certain pace that we can't really fast forward on. In addition, for us, it's not necessarily replacement, but the re-engineering of certain workflows in specific jobs. Some jobs have advanced faster with AI capabilities than others. We still really value that human interaction. Overall, I was going to say it's probably at the mid-level where it is a lot of those tasks that can be repetitive. There's some formula to them, such as scheduling, data analysts, etc. A lot of our senior level folks are still decision makers or patient or customer service facing touch points, and those aren't going to be replaced anytime soon. So those are really where we're seeing that impact again, kind of keeping a pulse on what's possible in the future and how that might impact how we start hiring in the future or developing jobs as our workforce develops and grows as well.
Okay, thank you. Mm-hmm. Josh, how about Accenture?
Yeah, so I mean, that's a $1 trillion question right now, right? Like whoever answers it with the best answer gets a small piece of that. But everybody's writing about it now. There's blogs, there's podcasts, we're seeing it everywhere. And I just encourage folks to educate themselves by figuring out what's happening, right? Like there's so much content out there that it's almost impossible to be able to consume it all. May I recommend pull together, whether it's an agentic AI or some type of capability to go out there and farm and source all that data and create little crib notes for you. Because I mean, that's really what the tool is for. It's to help make your lives easier. So anyways, let me, I read a good number of blogs, and when I say I read, I skim because I'm not the one technically reading it. But what I've found, especially within the Accenture ecosystem, is we're asked to publish on this all the time, right? And one of our recent publications out there from our Global Talent Reinvention Lead, this fellow named Stephen Robleski, he said and kind of is advocating for the fact that the gap between ambition and action is probably one of the biggest gaps we could find right now, because everybody wants to be part of this, but they're just not sure exactly where to jump off, right? And 84% of executives plan to redesign roles and teams around AI agents within the next 5 years. 38% of C-suite leaders anticipate that AI will change roles significantly, yet only 1 in 5 are actually thinking about how they would get that work done with AI at its core. So it's like this gap is basically where the next wave of competitive advantage is going to be won or lost by, folks that are on either side of the coin, right? And for me, like, it's super interesting because, I think we mentioned it earlier. This has nothing to do with the tool and the technology, and it's all about how the humans interact with it, because it's always human plus AI. We're never going to be just AI, and we will slowly burn if we just are human, right? Like, so we have to figure this out. Wharton actually published a study last year. It was this longitudinal study over a few years that showed how, how each year, increments were made, right? And how organizations are using AI to help them with their work. And I just think that's a really good, and later we can share all these links, but I think that's a good article if you're interested to see where people were 3 years ago versus where they are today across different enterprises. You asked about like the different levels, right? So I think the impact is greatest on any role where the primary work is repetitive, document heavy, or data heavy, right? That could be entry level, first pass drafting, summarizing, basic analysis. This means that new hires are going to need stronger digital confidence, critical thinking skills, and frankly, ability to judge quality. On the mid-level side, we're seeing a lot of folks, using and leveraging it for workflows, making sure the right processes are in place, using the AI tools effectively, verifying outputs from folks that are working for them. And for leaders, it's all about how do they scale AI safely and effectively, and how do they measure return on investment for the tools that they're building out. So everybody's getting a little piece of it, I think, from what I've seen.
Okay, thanks, Josh. Haley.
Yeah, sure thing. I think it is every level of role. I think that it looks a little different for each, but I want to double click on what everyone has said so far. AI is not going to replace jobs. It is going to augment, it is going to transform them. And I think, and I'm an eternal optimist, but I think it's going to do so in a way that helps us better capitalize on what makes us uniquely human. And that is that critical thinking, that what if thinking. So for entry level staff who are spending a lot of their time doing something that is repetitive or mundane or manual, if you're able to get to a 60% first draft really quickly with AI, that's wonderful, because the runway that the human brain then has for the remainder of that draft to get it polished, not just to tweak it, but to really kind of craft using that first pass of the clay that the AI has done. I find that really exciting. Probably I started as an educator, and so I still have the teacher bent here, but I love the idea of giving all staff, but especially those on the front lines who are closest to the service delivery, to the program subject matter expertise, that additional bandwidth in their day to apply what makes them uniquely human. I find that really exciting. I think for mid-level managers, certainly workflow automations, like Josh was saying, I think there is potentially, I've seen it in some areas, an additional expectation of reduced decision-making process if their staff are surfacing to them data or reports or something that needs their input on a more rapid pace because they have Gen AI augmentation for that. The decision cycle basically is reducing a little bit for mid-level. And then again, sort of similar to what Josh said, but for the executive level, making sure that they're getting the ROI, but then also like the governance, the risk, taking care of their people along the way. And I would say magic wand, and I don't care if you're public sector or private sector, the best AI tool that you are going to use is one that has the active input of your entry level frontline staff, because they are the ones who know. You might know the business process, and that's what gets shared in a boardroom because somebody made it for a strategic plan 3 years ago, and everyone says that's what we do. But if you talk to the frontline staff, they hit roadblocks, they find workarounds, they're manual, they're off script, they're doing whatever they need to do to help the person in front of them or to submit the ticket or whatever. And so if you're using AI to improve a process, speed it up, automate it, it is incumbent on executives. They have to get down to frontline level staff, get the input, have them actually map, yes, this is our process. What are you actually doing? What would make your job better, faster today? And so really, I think that 360, top to bottom, bottom up, both ways, getting really everyone on board as you're looking at AI tools is where you're going to see the greatest gains. Again, it's that human-centered OCM component that I think the organizations that really knock it out of the park on their AI use cases and implementation are going to be the ones including their staff early.
Okay, great point, Haley. John.
Yeah, I'll take some scraps from Josh and Haley here. Yeah, I mean, the everyone answer is it's across the board, but I think to me in different ways. And so my perspective on a lot what Haley was sharing, at the mid and senior level, we have most certainly seen AI reshape large scale data analysis and decision support. So if we think about in areas of healthcare delivery, wildfire modeling, transportation planning. These tend to be like very high visibility projects with measurable public impact. What Haley was talking about, and I was really keen on that particular statement. We're hearing that across the board with the GO is, and the broader and I think more arguably more transformative shift is happening in everyday work. And so drafting communications, reviewing contracts, analyzing reports, synthesizing policy guidance, that affects entry-level analysts just as much as executives. And so what changes is not just the task, it's the skill mix. And so, what we're seeing in these roles is that work becomes, more analytical, more evaluative, more judgment-driven. Employees move from generating first drafts to spending more time validating, refining, applying AI-assisted outputs responsibly, right? And so, again, I'm going to go back to this because I really want to punch this particular statement, but that's why the state of California is deeply focused on upskilling our current workforce, not replacing it. Our statewide L&D strategy prioritizes upskilling and reskilling as core pillars. This is consistent with global trends, also with our own data and analysis from the statewide learning development assessment. In fact, 46% of L&D programs, we can say globally, list upskilling as a top focus area, and we're aligned with that direction. So for us, AI isn't about shrinking the workforce; it's about strengthening our capabilities that we currently have. And so we're investing in digital fluency, critical thinking, data literacy, human-centered design, responsible AI use, so that our public servants are equipped for that. That I'd say the future of work, but the work of now, right? And again, I think Haley mentioned this, but all keeping this, keeping the human in the loop. We strongly believe because in government, technology should enhance public services and not outpace it.
Okay, thanks, John. So now the next question kind of shifts gears and kind of goes into maybe those trying to get into your organization. So Shannon, have these changes that you've discussed so far influenced how you source or hire for positions? And I know we've talked a lot about skills and competencies, but have you adjusted these skills and competencies, you prioritize, within your job postings and all that?
Right. So for us at Marshall, not being, for example, a system hospital or having a high volume of employees compared to some out there, like Josh mentioned, they're able to utilize AI and actually use it to filter through candidates, et cetera, like that. At Marshall, we have not gotten there yet. And again, still have some level of discernment on how we can operationalize that. at what breaking point would that tip over for us to engage AI in more of our hiring processes and our roles. Where we have made some changes is either in the interview process or with the job description development, encouraging our folks to forward think with creating that job description or that job posting to include those skills or competencies that are going to be right around the next bend, as well as including in our interviews questions that discern the candidate's level of competency or willingness to change with tools that are changing based on their specific industry or their specific specialty, and that they're open to those change and willing to learn. Part of that also for us has come with providing some AI literacy to our staff in general. And so our AI committee has regularly produced articles letting our staff know, hey, this is what Marshall's doing, this is what's coming around the bend, and really working on shaping a culture of what if and what's next instead of one of disbelief or overgeneralizing that AI is going to replace your healthcare provider or your job.
Okay. Thanks, Shannon. Josh, Accenture.
Okay, I was also trying to answer a question in the chat at the same time,
Okay.
so
Okay.
not bad. But I do know what the question is because Caitlin fortunately told us. So, all right, so we're still hiring for like core skills, communication, teamwork, problem solving, all kind of the normal stuff. But we're increasingly looking for AI literacy across all roles, not just the technical ones that we're hiring. And to me, AI literacy is, not only can people use the AI tools thoughtfully, but can they ask good questions? Do they understand the inputs? Can they validate the results? All of those are real activities. And we're prioritizing data fluency, understanding the data quality and the basic analytics, adaptability, and the responsible judgment, knowing what should be automated versus what requires human decision. And how this manifests, like for example, in our entry level position hiring, we're not only asking them can they build a report, but we're asking them, can you use AI to speed up the creation of that report? Can you explain your approach clearly? Can you still verify accuracy before it's used in decision making? Like we're asking more question. We're basically forcing people to think, and that's why from my perspective, when we're hiring anybody, or even when I'm looking to bring people on my projects, I'm checking critical thinking skills over above all else because I feel like once they have that capability, they're going to be great at whatever you want them to do. So, yeah.
All right, thanks. Haley.
Thank you. Yeah, I am also in the camp of adaptability, curiosity, I think. AI, it is early in 2026. 3 years ago, AI was an app that you paid $2.99 for, and it made you look like you were at an ACOM or something like that. And you think about where we are now, and in a space of agents and agents running agents, the rapidity of the progress and capability expansion that we are in right now almost renders saying like a hard skill with AI obsolete because the tools themselves are expanding in use case and application and capability so rapidly that, again, for me, it comes back to what are those uniquely human skills? So things like curiosity, being willing to just play around with different tools. It's almost, I won't say it's useless, but it is in some cases somewhat useless to train on a specific tool because the UI, the user interface of all of them is becoming continuously more intuitive. Think about like vibe coding where we have now, where you're just talking to a bot and you've never learned HTML or Java or CSS in anything in your life, and you can have it output a semi-functioning prototype. So it comes back to what are your thought processes? Are you curious? Are you adaptable? And can you articulate your thought process? I think is a really key one. Being able, if I were to say, why did you produce this? Or why do you believe that this is an accurate output? Having an answer for that why, like going back to a data source or a rationale, Again, as a teacher, it goes back to like English Socratic seminars, back up your why. What is your data? What is your reasoning here? And as far as the interviews themselves, I don't think they've really changed. I do tend to prefer in-person interviews now, only because I got burned from what were very clearly someone's typing in the direct question and they're reading it robotically to me over a Zoom. And so I prefer interviewing people in person. But again, it's that adaptability to where even if I ask a question on an interview and they may not have done that precise thing I'm asking about, but they have an analogous experience and maybe they used AI in that or they didn't. But being able to kind of tie those two together, like the bilateral brain thinking of a human to make those connections is more compelling now. But I guess, yeah, that's what I would say. Prioritizing curiosity, which again, it's an optimistic take, but I do think it's a real one. The tools are going to change. They're going to be different. If we held this webinar in 6 weeks, we would be having a different conversation about what tools are out there. I would call yourself tool agnostic. Just start playing around with the process and what you can produce playing around.
No, that's an outstanding point, and I'm seeing it more and more every day in what I'm seeing as well as we're digging deep. John, how about the state?
Yeah, so I'll be clear, I'm not speaking on behalf of the entire state here with how we hire as a state. I think departments have a lot of autonomy, particularly around there. Cal HR would be a different executive you're speaking for on there. So I'm going to focus primarily, on myself and the trends that I've seen, and again apply that to the learning and development community. And so I think interestingly, my biggest inflection point wasn't AI, it was the pandemic. The shift to hybrid work forced, I think, digital fluency across the workforce. That accelerated adoption of collaborative platforms, learning technology, and digital workflows in state governments. A lot of private sector already had those established, and so they got to really focus on that particularly. But for my experience in the state of California, we really got on board with leveraging that. So overall, our business evolved, and with that, our workforce priorities evolved too. So in learning development, we shifted, our hiring emphasis, and I would speak on behalf of L&D community of practice, but more towards instructional design, learning technology, data literacy, the user experience, rather than traditional presentation-based training roles. And in a lot of ways, we're still moving through that evolution from a workforce perspective, moving in that particular direction. Our statewide learning development assessment also showed that only 8% of departments strategically link training to their organizational goals. Only 8%. So that to me, that means that we need people who can think systemically, not just deliver content, but align learning to workforce strategy. And that's a completely different talent profile than I would expect, the state had 10 years ago. But I was also expect, 10 years ago, I was with Walmart Corporate doing a lot of fun, innovative stuff that we're seeing, come to fruition today in state government. But many, private sector organizations already had made that shift pre-pandemic and before the Gen AI boom.
Okay. Thanks, John. And Shannon, we're at the final question. And now I think what many in our audience are most interested in, honestly, it might be like a culmination of what we talked about today, is what recommendation would you offer to job seekers or training providers to help people stay competitive for roles in your organization?
Yeah, I think some of the panel members already touched on this, but walking into an interview with no background knowledge of AI for that specific specialty really is a missed opportunity for that candidate. And so I have actually interviewed folks that are in either those document heavy or data heavy positions. And when asked, what do you think about AI? How could that help you in the job? What do you see in the future? And they don't have an answer. They don't know. And so my recommendation is to either educate yourself, or if you're a training provider, educate the students or the candidates that you're helping with of researching what are the trends in your area, in your specialty. You might even find materials specific to that organization, especially if they are larger, and go ahead and do kind of what Haley was mentioning is if you've never played around with it, go play around with it. Understand the capabilities of AI and be able to verbalize in an interview to a hiring organization how you see that in that role that you're specifically applying for. I think that's an opportunity that some candidates are leaving on the table at this point.
Okay, thanks, Shannon. Josh, how about your take on this?
Sure. Can you guys hear the buzzing in the background? Okay, cool. They're working on my house and it is not quiet. Remodels, what are you gonna do? Okay, so here's my advice, right, to job seekers: build the basics, practice on real tasks, and keep learning. You don't need to be a data scientist to stay competitive in this space, but you do need to have a foundational comfort with AI, what it's good at, where it could be wrong, how to write clear prompts, how to check the results. Like, you just have to be literate in that space. If you combine that with strong human skills like communication, critical thinking, which I talked about, you're going to be in a really good spot for any organization. If you're a training provider, right, like focus less on theory and more on hands-on projects, because that's going to help them be prepared for the work that they're actually going to do. So like an example would be, have students use AI to draft a report, but then require them to like improve the prompt, fact check the output, explain what they changed and why they changed it, and then present the results in final plain language, just so that way, like, they really understand the why they're doing the things they're doing. Because I'll tell you, it's easy to get trapped in the AI world where you type a simple prompt, you get an answer, and you feel great about it. But like, if we keep doing that over and over and over again, we are going to lose our ability to be rational, sound thinkers. And just like when you get in your car, like for me, as an example, right? I don't drive anywhere anymore without putting it in my navigation. Not because I don't know where I'm going, but just because I want to know what's the quickest way to get there. Is there traffic here? Can I shave a minute going this? But it's so bad now that I'm not even thinking about it. So in 10 years, when navigation goes away or the roads change or something, I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, I'm going to just literally forget how to drive. So that's just do the practice, do the work, but keep thinking. Otherwise, you're going to be in trouble in 10 years.
Well, hopefully in 10 years, the cars just take us there.
And look, that's another problem, Joel. We're going to have a different session on autonomous driving vehicles because...
Yeah.
No, I'm just teasing. Another day.
Yeah. Yeah. In my vision, the car, it's like the model of the Uber. It just comes to your house, it picks you up, takes you where you're going, then you get a different car. Nobody even has cars anymore. So it'll be who has cars now? Or Haley.
First of all, Josh, you could send me on a soapbox for forever. Again, I taught high school English for the beginning of my career, and please keep the critical thinking. Like, we are in an age where it would be so easy for those skills to just atrophy, especially for anyone who is like in the Gen Z population where they grew up. Their formative years, AI was there. Like, please, if you have kids, make them read books, real books, make them do real math on paper, make them write things out. Okay, so soapbox over. But I would say I want to give like a couple concrete ideas, recommendations to job seekers. There are fantastic resume, cover letter, application response tools or capabilities with AI that are out there. And I'm not going to be blindly optimistic and just say don't use those. Like, you should use those, they're good. And put your critical thinking lens on, severely red pen whatever it spits out. And I will tell you this, having sat back in my state years, for example, when I would be hiring for a position that had 120 applicants, I'm reading through these cover letters, and the first time that I read this turn of phrase that is just like beautiful in this person, I'm like, ooh, like maybe I'm going to interview this person. And then as I keep going, that same turn of phrase shows up 5, 10, 20 times across applications. And then I have this horrific realization of, all of them just put this into AI and copy pasted. Like you have to consider it a V1, but you have to go back in and put your own spin on it. Be a critical thinker, and especially in using outputs for job applications. AI can be a dead giveaway. And again, my best advice is to amplify your human skills. So, like curiosity, flexibility, go play around with AI. It doesn't even have to be job related. There are really, really cool personal life applications for AI, for retrieval augmented generation, RAG models like Notebook LM. You can put together like travel notebooks, or it can be based on a hobby, whatever. But find some way to use AI, plan out a fake international vacation trip, give it really specific geographic locations, throw some dietary restrictions in there, and name 3 different like historic sites or types of things you want to visit, and tell it to plan it all out for you, and just see sort of what those capabilities are, play around with it. It's important, I think, to feel comfortable at least engaging with these tools, because the use of that application, whether it's for work or for personal life, can kind of be interchangeable. The most important thing is to be comfortable at least engaging with those tools. And then maintaining and cultivating those human critical thinking skills, especially when we do look at a work environment and we're talking about like subject matter expertise, whether that's in knowledge work, data work, regardless. Kind of to Josh's point, like AI will spit something out and it's always going to sound beautiful. It's going to sound like the most self-confident intern you've ever had who will say, yes, boss, I've got it. And you have to actually look at the output, because half the time it could be wrong and you might tell it it's wrong. It'll say, oh, thanks for catching that. Here's what I meant to say. But you, the human, have to be the one to say, think about that again, or this part is wrong. So being able to take AI as a first draft and then again expand it, nuance it, strengthen it using your human critical thinking, curiosity, subject matter expertise, that what if thinking is going to be a way to differentiate.
Wow, thanks, Haley. John, State.
Yeah, thank you. So my recommendation is to build foundations, not shortcuts. And so we partnered with the Office of Data and Innovation to offer a Foundations of AI training series. And not one of those courses in that series teaches a specific AI tool. In fact, only one of the courses focuses on the responsible use of Gen AI. Instead, it focuses on critical thinking, human-centered design, data analysis, and overall responsible use. And why? Well, Haley said it earlier, because tools will change. Our employee survey showed that 50% of employees want training more relevant to their jobs, and 37% want training aligned to personal development. And that signals a desire for practical applied capabilities, not just exposure to new platforms. And so I think I've got a few things, like if you were a job seeker, the things that I would say to focus on would be developing your digital fluency, strengthening, and Haley said this again, your ability to evaluate AI outputs, build comfort working with data, and practice communicating insights very clearly. And for those who are more on the training provider side, design for learning transfer, align to business outcomes, measure impact beyond level 1 or reaction surveys, like really get into it. In public service, learning only matters if it changes how we work. And ultimately, how does it improve outcomes for California? How does it impact your next door neighbor?
Okay, thanks. Appreciate that, John. And so now I just want to thank the panelists for their time and insights. I think it's been great hearing from them and seeing some of the similarities and unique attributes of the different organizations. Chester, why don't you bring back up the slideshow? Got a quick intermission here, and then we're going to go directly into Q&A. So it's kind of a final takeaway for those in the workforce and education systems. The U.S. Department of Labor released a training and employment notice last week providing a national AI literacy framework. And Caitlin also, or D'Angelo just dropped this in the chat as well as a link. This is great news for the education community, because we've been kind of right in on what should we be doing? And this kind of I think this kind of squares it away. It kind of defines the baseline AI literacy across 5 content areas and 7 delivery principles intended for integration in the workforce and education systems. And a lot of that literally aligned to what our panelists were talking about today. So if you're considering how today's employer discussions translates into program design, the notice is worth reviewing. It provides a clear federal reference point for AI literacy that's not vendor driven and not tool specific. Again, exactly what our panelist was talking about today. So hopefully that little commercial intermission could be helpful for some. Okay, slide. So now we're going to move into our Q&A. If the audience has any questions for our panel, you can please use the raise hand function or place your question in the chat.
And I'm here to help uplift some questions from the chat. And I wanted to pull earlier. I know, John, you touched on this, but I wanted to give our other panelists a chance as well. So kind of open to anyone who wants to answer this. This is from Tavina. In your opinion, what are the credible sources for learning about both AI development and its applications?
All right.
This is Shannon. For as a hiring employer, what I've seen be most helpful to candidates is having an association with their professional membership or community for their specialty. And so tying in and networking with a lot of those peers to kind of be on the forefront of what's specifically going on in their area versus learning about emerging issues for AI in general.
Any other thoughts on that?
I mean, this is a basic answer, but as far as emerging issues for AI in general, it's great to set just news alerts for yourself on whatever search terms you want. And then there are 1,000,001 podcasts out there. But if you search AI, look at the ones that have a lot of listeners. There are some that are very short that have kind of daily news roundups. If you're looking at sort of like a meta view of just technological developments or major news happening in the market.
Okay.
Thank you. And I have one more question from Caleb, and then I'll uplift your question next, Katie. From Caleb, AI or agent orchestration skills, such as conducting in-tandem agentic workflows, appear to be on the horizon. How do you think about applying this skill set in your business environments? What do you expect the positive impact for your environment, for your organization will be?
This is a really interesting question. I will say, if I were a betting woman and there were a market for this, maybe it's on Polymarket now, I don't know. I would bet that all of the prompt engineer job roles, or many of them that we've seen very rapidly blossom in the last couple of years, are going to be basically renamed into agent orchestrators or something, agent wrangler, agent handler, something like that. For those who aren't aware, an AI agent is a tool with a specific use case that can automate semi-autonomously within guardrails and roles that a human has given it. You can imagine an agent like a very highly trained PhD student, really smart on like one file drawer. And so then you can have a team of agents that are each pursuing their own autonomous individual workflows. But then the question of like checking their outputs, checking their risks, doing recursive training, how do you do that? Well, you put an agent on top whose job is to orchestrate all of the other agents and check their outputs. And so this is something that we're seeing come out now. I think that the first movers on this are seeing some really cool stuff. It is obviously going to be people who are in the private sector. But the bottom line is you might have an agent doing agent orchestration. You still have to have at least one person who is the master of the orchestrating agent, because any agent eventually, you may have some skew, some hallucination, some drift. And so you're always going to need that human in the loop, that human guardian.
Thank you so much. If no one else has a comment on that, I'll just touch. I see Josh and Katie going back in the chat, but just want to note, Josh mentioned working with the K16 Collaborative, and I see y'all going back and forth. But Josh, do you want to just touch on that for the group or who might not be familiar?
Yeah, I'm actually not the reason why I wanted to connect Katie with Janila, who's one of our folks locally. Just she's aware of all the intricacies of the program and what specifically we're doing. Um, I use it as an example of where we're doing work. I don't have I don't have like the exact two or three things that we're working with them for this quarter, but I can get back to the team if they're interested in that.
Thank you. Apologies to put you on the spot there.
No, it's okay. So look, I'm the first to admit sometimes when I don't know stuff. It is yeah.
That's what makes us human. Well, thank you.
I was
Well,
going to say you
I'm-
admit it instead of making something up like an AI would. So good for
That's
you,
true.
John. Pass the human test.
There you
Thank
go.
you. And Valley Vision works alongside them as well. Thanks, Renee, for dropping a link to the chat. That covers the questions in the chat, but I'll turn it back over to you, Joel. And if folks have additional questions, please feel free to raise your hand and ask verbally as well.
Yeah, if there's no more questions out there, maybe we do have one here. Let's see. Nope. So if there's no questions, and I don't see any hands raised to come off mute, I guess, Sam, I'll turn it back to you.
Great. Thank you so much. All of our panelists, we thank you so much for your insights and expertise today. It's so greatly appreciated, and I hope everybody learned something and has some follow-ups to do, either getting new information and learning, or reaching out to folks and connecting and figuring out how you all can work together or learn from each other. But thank you all so much for attending today. We really look forward to continuing our work in this space. If you are interested in that further work, go ahead and reach out to Joel or myself. But again, thank you so much, and we hope to see you again soon. Bye, everybody.